Hey guys, I'm back. Thank you for tuning in. I have another little bloom update video for you guys. I have lots of cool orchids in flower right now, and I wanted to show them off to you guys. So thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do. But let's go ahead and get started.
Up first, let's take a look at a very cute new addition. This is Lindley Kupowitz. I got this in bud just a month or two ago. Now this is a cross between Path Dallinatii and Path Malapoense. So it's a primary hybrid. The Dallinatii is what gives it that nice kind of pink flouncy look to it. And Dallinatii is one of only, I think, a couple Paphiopedilums that are fragrant. So some of the progeny are also fragrant. But the fragrance doesn't seem to be a very stable trait with breeding, and the fragrance doesn't always hold up very well with some of the hybrids. The Path Lindley, I think, is supposed to be fragrant, and by most accounts it is, but I think once in a while some of them aren't fragrant. I think I've heard both cases, and I haven't noticed a fragrance yet on mine, but I think it's actually a first time bloom. I think the next bloom will, be better shape, and maybe I'll get to experience that fragrance at some point, but I'm still happy I got it, and I think I will grow to like it more with time. It is really cool, and it's got that really cute mottled foliage. Here is a really cute little miniature. This is Restripia striata, sometimes called Restripia brachypus. Not sure which one is the proper name. I hear them both. But it's this super cool little sort of pleurophthalid type. And this was actually a gift from my good friends Judy and Mark. Thank you guys if you're watching. I always think of you every time it blooms. And it blooms pretty often, which is nice. It's sort of like a free bloomer. I think it blooms a little bit more in spring and summer, but it blooms whenever it feels like it, which is fun. And it's got these really cool, strange little flowers that look like a little bug or something. It's really neat. And a lot of these little mini kind of pleurophthalid types are kind of temperature sensitive and a bit cooler growing, but what's nice about this one is that I think it leans a bit more warm growing. It's pretty temperature tolerant. It's not quite as fussy about humidity and water quality. Of course, it appreciates good humidity and decent water, but it's not going to just up and drop dead on you. So they're pretty hardy and really cool. Those flowers are so neat. Here is a beautiful little denphal, one of those bigibum type hybrids. I bought this as a no ID at just a grocery store, but I later discovered that it does have a name. This is Dendrobium Blue Happiness, and it has a very distinct color. It's quite blue, even bluer than some other orchids that are actually described as cerulean. It's really nice. The color is just stunning. This thing bloomed so well for me last year, and I've been neglecting it a little bit this time around, so I only got the one spike, but it's got some new growths coming, and I'm sure I'll get better bloom displays in the future. But I'm still thrilled even to just have a few flowers because the color is just gorgeous. And these denphals are so easy. They like to be a little bit dry between watering, so it's okay if you neglect them a little bit. They grow really fast usually, and they like pretty bright light, but not crazy bright. So if you don't have the best light, you still might be able to flower these little denphals. I think because they're quite hybridized and probably line bred to be kind of strong growers, and they're quite nice. And this one especially, just because of that color, it's wonderful. Up next here is something kind of neat. This is my Sophronitis, or Cattleya cernua, depending on who you ask. I kind of prefer to call it Sophronitis because Sophronitis seem to be kind of different than other Cattleyas, so I kind of like that distinction, but what do I know? Either way, it's tiny and adorable. The flowers on this one are kind of old, but they're holding up okay, but they're a bit droopier. But yeah, just gorgeous little orange flowers. And of the Sophronitis, this is probably one of the easiest ones if you aren't familiar with Sophronitis, this is the best one to start out with. I'm still pretty new to them myself, but this one seems to grow really easily. It's my first time blooming it. I've only had it for a few months, but so far it's been a delight to grow. Some Sophronitis are a bit more fussy. Some of them are a bit like cooler growing and more sensitive to like water quality and stuff like that. But I think the cernua seems to be one of the hardier ones. So definitely give one a shot if you're interested in giving them a try. They look really awesome once they establish themselves and get like lots of flowers. And I think they can bloom a couple times a year if they're happy. Really cool. I'm excited to have this and I can't wait to hopefully get more spikes in the future and cover this mount. They have a really cute little growth habit with those tiny little leaves. Really gorgeous. And next, I just briefly wanted to show off this new addition. This is Dendrobium hikuency, and I just got this, so I don't want to run my mouth about the culture too much because honestly, I had no hand in growing or blooming this, and I haven't done a ton of research on it just yet. But I did want to give you a look at it because it's just so cool looking. I couldn't keep this to myself. I think they're easy to grow, but a bit fussy about blooming. I want to say that they need some sort of winter rest, whether it's like a slight dry period or a temperature dip. I need to read up on this, but I just had to show this off to you guys. It's so cool looking. I don't know what took me so long to get into the tiny dendrobiums, but man, they're just so cool. So there it is, Dendrobium hikuency. I will definitely talk more about this in the future once I've done some research and had some experience growing it, but look how cool that flower is. This here is the famous Moneyara Millennium Magic Witchcraft, which is very well known for these super dark colored flowers. It's sometimes called the black orchid. Of course, it's not exactly black. It's more of like a very, very deep, like eggplant reddish purple color, but it's pretty black and it looks really cool. So I'm super happy to have this. I'm glad I sat down to film this today because I thought the flowers would last a bit longer than they have. The Cattleya type orchids tend to discharge their pollen kind of easily and the flowers start to fade. There was actually quite a few more blooms that have already fallen off. So I don't know, but I definitely wanted to take a minute to show it off to you guys because it's so friggin' cool. The flowers have this like wicked shape. They kind of remind me of like bats. They look like kind of spooky, like Halloween bats flying. Really neat, but yeah, super cool. The Moneyara is actually a combination. It's got three genera in it. It's got Catasetum, Cycnoches, and Mormodes, I believe. This is a pretty easy Catasetum type. I find a lot of them to be pretty easy, but some of the sort of like hybrids tend to be a bit less fussy about the winter rest and stuff. So I find that this one I don't have to be quite as careful about when I stop and start watering. And I think they were kind of expensive and hard to find for a while, but not anymore. They're pretty easy to get your hands on. Really cool. Nice big leafy plant. I have not been buying as many Catasetums lately because they are enormous, but yeah, I definitely wanted to take a minute to show it to you guys. I have talked a bit about Catasetum culture in previous videos, so you can go back and look if you would like, but I'm due for another Catasetum type video. Let me know if you have any questions about Catasetums, but I just wanted to make sure to give you guys a look at this thing because it's so friggin' cool looking. Last but not least, we have the big, huge, stunning LCCG Robling Beach View. And as you can see, it's actually looking really crummy right now. I waited too long to film, like I always do, but it looked really stunning a week or two ago, so I'll insert a couple pictures from when it was in its glory. It had more spikes and more blooms and looked really nice. I sort of have to clean this plant up in general. There's some old crummy leaves I should cut off and stuff, so it's looking a mess right now. LCCG Robling is a cross between
Cattleya gaskeliana and Laelia purpurata. And as you can see, it's definitely very similar to its parent purpurata, but it's got this really wonderful cerulean color. This is the first year that I got more than one spike on it. I had 3 spikes going when it was at its best. Now, purpurata is one of like the fastest growing, kind of easiest growing Cattleyas you can get, but they do need really bright light. I would say that's kind of the tricky part. And growing them is easy. You'll get, 5 or 6 new growths at a time if you're, taking good care of it, but they don't always flower. I've heard of people blooming them in windowsills, and I'm sure it's possible, but I wouldn't count on that unless you've had experience blooming other Cattleyas in your windowsill. Then, maybe give it a shot, but they do need it pretty bright, and they're definitely happiest if you can maybe grow them outside for part of the year so they get nice bright light and strong air movement. I think it's more of a summer bloomer, but I've heard it described as like a free bloomer. I've had a random spike now and then in the winter, but they definitely seem to bloom more in summer, which I think is in line with the purpurata parentage. But yeah, it's pretty standard care for these. I don't really have too much to say about the culture. Keep them in a pretty free draining mix, but water it really well, and keep it really nice and bright. I fertilize this thing pretty heavily because, as you can see, there's a lot of plants here to support, so they need some good nutrition in order to produce these huge sword-shaped leaves. I do really love the foliage. The fragrance of the blooms is incredible. It's really nice. It's like a sweet kind of like almondy, like anisette kind of smell, I guess. I don't know how to describe it, but it's really lovely. The only downside is that the plant is enormous, as you can see. I definitely bought this before I had a lot of orchids and I had more space. I don't know if I would have bought something like this today, but I'm glad I have it, and it is really beautiful, and I'm excited now that I've been getting more than one spike. Very happy to have this one. I recommend it if you have the space and if you can give them the light. They are really stunning. Definitely a showstopper. Okay guys, I think I'm gonna leave it there for now. I do have a lot of awesome stuff in spike that'll be open for my next video. Some kind of different stuff maybe you haven't seen in a while. I have like 4 or 5 different Orangus in spike. I have some more Catasetum blooms coming, so it's gonna be a good one. So make sure you subscribe to my channel and stick around for the next one. I will see you then. Bye.